I suck at jiu-jitsu. How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
The diabolical leader of the head-knock
Greg Souders, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Sir Josh. How are you?
I am doing good. I really am excited about this interview, if I'm being honest. I've never felt like I've done more research for an interview than this one. So I'm just really excited. I probably have too many questions, probably won't get to any of them, but I at least know where I want to start. And it is with this. Do you feel that you have, especially recently, been treated fairly by the jiu-jitsu community?
Actually, honestly, it's not something I think about. I don't ever approach an interaction with this idea of, quote, fairness. You know, you never really know what to expect upon entering a conversation or entering a space. So what I like to do is offer value for why I exist in this space, and I let the people in the space judge me accordingly. And if we find that it's unfair because, you know, some shit happens, then so be it. So then again, I'd have to justify why I think if I were being treated unfairly, why that is. But no, I think to answer that more clearly, I think that people approach me without understanding why they're approaching me. And I think that causes a lot of friction. You know, I say some stuff that people might disagree with and they want to approach it, but they don't approach it with like this question in mind, right? Like, why is this guy saying this shit? What is he saying? They already come at me with a different perspective and expectation. They try to hit me straight with that. And that puts me on the defensive and I get a little aggressive. So, yeah.
And that's kind of why I ask, is because when I've seen some of the just more recent interviews, some of the debate interviews, it does seem like the conversation is about proving something that you've said wrong. And there doesn't seem to be much thought in, oh, this could be really helpful. You know, at least from certain perspectives. I think certain people that I've talked to have gone full send and adapted your approach. But
Sure.
Other people I deal with are just so anti, and I don't understand if it's anti because it's new or if it's anti because of how much it challenges what we've always done.
Sure.
But I just, from your perspective, what do you, I know, like you said, you don't think a lot about their perspectives. You just think about what you're doing. But what do you think is the cause of that? There is these certain people that draw this line in the sand, it seems, and their existence seems to be about proving you wrong and not
Sure.
about the method or whatever.
Well, I think first they're responding to the way I make them feel. Like I say what I'm thinking, I speak directly. And I think sometimes it comes off as either arrogant or like a know-it-all or like that I'm trying to tell them that they're stupid or that they don't know what they're talking about. Now, in some cases, yeah, these motherfuckers are stupid as shit. They don't know what they're talking about. And sometimes dudes like that need to be confronted and you need to say something. But at the same time, that's honestly not the energy that I'm coming with. When I get passionate about something, I get really emotionally invested. Like I speak with emotion and like just feeling. But honestly, when I turn the camera off, when I stop the interview, I go about my day. You know, I don't even, it doesn't really affect me. But I think I do. I put out a vibe that people respond to and they take it as an offense and they meet me with how they're feeling about how I make them feel. And then I think, of course, we get the traditional, this guy is saying something that I don't understand that might make it seem that what I'm doing is wrong. So I'm going to challenge it. And unfortunately, they don't prepare their argument before they accept the challenge. And that's fine. I mean, this is an ongoing dialogue, is an ongoing conversation. And I think we have to meet each other wherever we are, really, you know? So.
That makes sense. So when it comes to an idea, it doesn't even have to be CLA, but just an idea, especially like it's hard to give an idea to the jiu-jitsu community and they're going to accept it, right? Or any big group of people and that they're going to all accept it, right? But just even in your own school, when you go back to when you originally had these ideas or started to go, hey, what we're doing needs to be different. Was it hard to convince people, convince your own people, your own students
No, not at all. And I think it's because the way I did it. So as a coach, I've always been really connected with my students. I spend a lot of time with my guys. Like people will hold me after class and ask me a bunch of questions, or hit me with messages, or maybe have some personal problems they want my opinion with or help with. And so I've always historically spent a lot of time with my students. So I try to there's this trust, there's this exchange. So my students tend to trust me. I tend to build good relationships with people that are around me. And so from 2014 to 2016, when I really first started experimenting with these ideas and not really know how to put them together, it was actually a conversation with John Danner in 2016 that I had that kind of gave me the courage to just pull the trigger and run with my ideas. And I've told this story a bunch, but what I didn't tell is how I introduced it to my school. So when I came back and I was like, hey guys, we've been kind of doing a piece of my idea, but now I want to go full board with this thing, and I want to start experimenting, and I want you guys to trust me. Some of these practices are going to be weird. Some of these practices are not going to feel right, but let's just work together and see if we can use it. And everybody was on board. They're like, all right, coach, we'll do it. And then I said, if you have any questions about why I'm designing practice the way I'm designing it, or if you have any questions about the things I'm saying, just ask. I'll explain it to you until you're tired of hearing me speak. So again, let them know what my intention was, and then I left it open for interaction. So it wasn't like, this is what we're doing, that's it, stay here, or go away, fuck you. It was nothing like that. It was more like, I made it collaborative, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And so do you feel like that if you were trying to convince your students of anything new, the collaborative approach is kind of the thought process to have?
Well, I think so. I mean, this is going to sound a little bit contradictory coming from me because of how I appear online, but I'm not of the convincing type. Like, I actually get pretty irritated when people want to, challenge everything. But I also like debate. So I speak as if I have a plan, and you can engage with me on my plan if you would like, and we can talk about it. But I really have no interest in convincing you unless that's the name of the game. So on a lot of these podcasts where I've had these conversations, the intention was to either inform or convince the other party, but I typically don't engage in that much in my waking life. Again, unless that's the intention of the conversation, I really, I don't care.
What about when you're dealing with guys that maybe it's not even they are pushing out the idea, but more specifically with any type of constraint, it's hard to get people to not want to go super hard, especially people who have trained for a period of time and it is just in their mentality to, they have this design that's like, I want to go hard. What is the language that should be used? Are there certain constraints to start with to help them start to actually grasp this, at least grasp the skill of being able to be mindful in your training?
Yeah, so I rather than think about convincing people, I like to think about removing or changing expectations, though this might be convincing with a new hat. I mean, I think, understanding that everybody comes to you with a certain expectation about what jiu-jitsu is going to feel like, look like, smell like, train like. They're coming with this already. Nobody walks into this door as a blank slate. So I'm dealing with everyone as they are. So when it comes to trying to change behavior, something like going too hard or not being focused enough, that's just the job of a coach, no matter which method you choose to employ for training interventions, right? So yeah, I have to change the expectation. So if I get a person who comes in here and they're like, hey, I just want to go hard, I just want to blast, and that's something that I don't want for the room at that time, I will constrain it. I will find a way to set the tasks, set the situations, manipulate the environment in such a way that the level of energy that I don't want to see put into the system, I'll just constrain it so it can't exist. I'll make the win conditions such that you would need to be more patient to achieve them, or I would make the task focus such that you would need to focus more to accomplish your task. So again, I use the designing of training more than I use the words that I say to start to initiate a change in behavior.
I am a man betrayed by the art that he loves. My name's Josh McKinney, and as most of you know, I've been cursed with the burden of fixing jiu-jitsu. With your help, we're going to heel hook the fake black belts, every single one of them. Those mat bullies that you're dealing with, we're going to pressure tap them. In Reddit BJJ, we're burning it to the ground unless they allow me to post my podcast episodes and quit deleting them. But I can't do this alone. Every like, every comment, every 5-star review, it fuels the mission, it powers the algorithm, and honestly, it keeps me from turning to the dark side and opening a karate school in a strip mall between a CBD store and Spencer's Gifts. So if you believe in better jiu-jitsu, review the podcast, do it for the future, do it for the children, but most importantly, do it so you never have to hear someone say "os" ever again.
Do you, whether you're teaching a class or you're teaching a seminar or whatever, however you're running jujitsu, when you say design, is this something that is conceptual in a way that by the people that attend the seminar, you can start to go, this is how, or by how they react to the first bits of it, this is the room that I have, this is how I'm going to try to manipulate this room? Or is it more structured to where it's like, this is the idea that I'm going to convey to these guys, this is part 1, 2, 3, 4, this is how you do it?
Well, you actually would use all the above. So I go in with a general framework for how I want to approach teaching the lesson, whether it's more of a lecture designed to change someone's perception about the nature of what's happening, or more of a practice where I need them taking action to let them experience these changes I want them to ultimately have. And it might be either extreme in one side or the other, or it might be a mixture of both. Typically, when I'm in a room of people I don't know, I have to explore what the room is going to be like. So I come in with a little more of a pre-focus to kind of get them moving, and then I'll adjust as I go along. Where if in my own room, I already sort of have an idea of what's happening and where the room is going, so I can be a little bit more like, this is what we're doing this week, and here's why. And it be kind of a little, I don't like to use the word strict, but a little more strict. But yeah, again, there is no, I guess you could say, protocol outside of adapting to the changes that are presented in front of you based on the information you currently have. And so that's sort of how I operate. Throw something out there, see what happens, and then adapt to it as such. But again, I always have an intention for how I'm designing either the practice or lecture or whatever for new people or the people that I train every day. So again, I let that intention guide how I adapt and how I change to the information as it's being presented.
Yep, that makes really good sense. I've heard you say that people don't ask you that. One, they just ask you about the same thing. That was something that we talked about before we even started recording. Is we all want to talk about, Greg, about this thing that you have really dedicated so much of your time and your expertise to, right? But that being said, people probably still aren't asking you the right questions, maybe outside of that. Do you have any questions that you think of that make you go, man, I wish somebody would ask me this on a podcast? I wish I would get to go to this talking point.
A lot of times I wish we talked about jiu-jitsu a lot. Like, people want to talk about CLA, which is great because that's the method that I'm using to change behavior in my room, but it's all based on my understanding and expertise in the field of grappling. So I'm more of an expert in grappling and jiu-jitsu than I am CLA. CLA is just the method I'm trying to understand based on a scientific framework that I'm trying to understand. And so I'm using it to make people better at jiu-jitsu. So a lot of times those connections, people don't ask me enough about those connections, right? Like, people like to talk about process-oriented movements like step 1, step 2, step 3, or like this move or that move, but no one ever asks me those in conjunction, the questions about those in conjunction with how I use CLA to formulate them. And I just wish it was more jiu-jitsu leaning and less scientific leaning. But again, that might be my fault because the way I speak and the way I've been presenting the information. So, yeah.
So, just to make sure I understand, so it's you feel like this, not this framework, but I guess the way that you look at jiu-jitsu that you have created, the games that you have created, come from the way that you look at jiu-jitsu specifically, correct?
I mean, deeply so.
How long have you been training?
2004, February 10th was my very first day I ever stepped on a jiu-jitsu mat.
All right. That is a really long time to be dedicated to jiu-jitsu. Who are some people that have shaped your jiu-jitsu perspective, would you say? Like especially the way that you look at it now? Who are some
Initially,
people?
I can tell you the first two that had the greatest influence on me leading up to me going off on my own. The two greatest influences how I look at the game early on in my career were my original coach, Lloyd Irvin, and Ryan Hall, one of my training partners. So those two had a massive effect on how I looked at it. So for Lloyd, he was trying to take grappling seriously. He wanted to turn it into more of a sport, right? Because because it's just a sport like anything else. And so he tried to bring a level of professionalism to it, like training schedule, the expectations during training, the kind of like yes or no, black and white, understanding success versus failure with no excuses type attitude. You do what you say you're going to do. You dedicate to the things you say you're going to dedicate to. Just bringing that attitude and bringing a bunch of guys together that had that same goal in mind, and really giving us a place to develop into these things he said we want to become. So that was a huge influence for me, because I had never been in like a sporting context before. I was a chess player before jiu-jitsu, and I was like a street kid before that. So I never really had an organized frame to work within my entire life. So meeting him and being exposed to him was the first time I got asked to do something in an organized way, where the demands were put on me by somebody else. And so that taught me a lot about discipline and sticking to my guns and being tough and being honest and shit like that. And then Ryan Hall was the first guy that I ever talked to like in a nerdy way about jiu-jitsu. Ryan Hall was all about like, base posture, structure, angles, why the triangle is the way it is, zero-sum games, physical systems. And he was the first guy that ever really talked to me like that. So that was very exciting for me, because I'm sort of an intellectual guy. So having another guy like that around me, it really sparked my mind and helped me look at jiu-jitsu differently. And then most recently, John Danner has been a massive influence on what I'm doing. Like probably central in the last 10 years, he's been the most influential figure to me.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. So specifically with Lloyd, was there any, after going out on your own, was there any desire of like, hey, the method has been drill and drill and drill? And were you looking outside because you had seen that method before so closely, of the drill to win, drillers or killers method? Do you think that was why you were kind of looking outside for, something looking outside of repetitive drilling, which was kind of, that was my dad and I were in Illinois buying products to learn to repetitively drill back then. And
Sure,
so
we all learn.
yeah. And so it's like, was there is that just random that your main talking point is not drilling, or is that who you are as a person?
Well, it's hard to say, because can we really parse those things out? Can we really know all the variations that are Greg Souders and his personality and his interest and his experience? Like, I don't think we can separate these.
I'm
Yeah,
working
no,
on it.
me too. So, I think, like, honestly, I'm very dedicated to the things that I involve myself in, like, so much so that I actually have to be careful about the projects and hobbies that I take on. I'll get lost very easily. Like, I used to play chess, and I was completely obsessed for about 5 years of my life, where that was central to everything I did. And then it's even now, I can't even look at a chessboard, because once I start playing, I start forgetting about the other things I have to do, and I'll play chess obsessively. I'll start reading books about chess. I'll start watching videos about chess. So anyway, long story short, that's a part of my personality. So if I want to know something, if I want to investigate, if I'm curious, it takes all of me, and I'll invest all of myself in that process. So when I left Lloyd's, because I did the same thing. When he told me that we have to drill this many times, this long, this pace, these movements, I believed him, and I did it. I did everything that was asked of me. But then when I went off on my own, I started discovering things on my own as an individual that sat counter to the things I was told. So I was curious and interested in what does the world know about these things? And so I investigated, and I found accidentally or randomly or whatever, that the things that were told to me were not correct, and they were not based on anything other than historically well-educated guessing.
So do you feel like that's how you look at everything, not just jiu-jitsu? Is that the perspective that you tend to take?
Which one?
The one just questioning, the questioning and observing.
For sure. I think, like, here's what's interesting. Like, we are in and of a world. We are not separated from it. So everything we are investigating is happening to us, and we are happening to it. We are embedded. So if we want to know the nature of a thing, we have to look at the thing and ask, where are these lines where the nature breaks down or function or doesn't function? Like, what is it and why is it? So I think those two questions are central to any type of investigation. And so whether I was taught to think like that or I naturally thought like that, I don't know anymore. But I've always been skeptical and I've always been curious. But yeah, so now if I approach something, I try to pay attention to as much as I can learn about the thing that I'm looking at.
Do you think that there's any evidence, and even if there wasn't, even if there was no chance of this happening, let's say in a hypothetical world, you discovered that the constraint-led approach was not the best approach for jiu-jitsu, would you, A, just let everybody keep doing CLA and then keep this time to yourself? Would you explore it? Do you feel like you've become so ingrained in that idea that it would be hard to, not go with CLA anymore? Like if that evidence was presented to you in a way that confirmed to you, or at least made you more confident than you are in CLA, that just something different was the true method. I don't know, standing on your head and training jujitsu all the time. But if that happened, would
No,
you accept it?
I'm high in openness as a personality. So even though I seem very rigid and protective of my thoughts, I'm actually not. I just debate hard and I really fight for the thing that I'm working on, but I don't do it with a true attachment to the thing. I just believe that whatever side you pick, you have to commit to it until you find out that you're wrong. You know what I mean? The whole thing about investigation is you want to make sure that what you're investigating is falsifiable. So the expectation is that I am wrong. But in order to discover that, I have to find the limits of where I am. So through reading the material, sharing the material, implementing the material, I'm testing the thing that I'm saying to be real. Now, to whatever degree it's effective, we're finding that it actually is, but we don't know where that limit is yet. And so there might be something that we're not seeing collectively that's going to perform better in teaching people how to do things than CLA. See, we have to remember that methods are many, and CLA is just a method. What's really interesting about CLA is not the method itself, but the framework that supports it. Ecological dynamics, dynamical systems theory, complexity science. And so I think that the more we understand about system dynamics, complexity science, we're going to understand more about how humans operate as a complex system. And I think that's going to change the way we approach training interventions. But there are three things that I don't think are going to change no matter what method we use. I think we understand that variation is necessary. It's a feature, not a bug, so we don't want to get rid of it. That humans respond to novelty, and novelty is a strong stimuli for learning. And that everything is in fact nonlinear. We don't know what's going to cause what. This causal relationship we think we see is not really as discrete as people claim it to be. So I think that no matter which direction we go in, those three things will hold true as we discover new methods. And oh, by the way, so all that babbling saying, I'd be the first motherfucker to change. I'm going to come out here online and be like, hey guys, I'm an asshole. I was wrong, bro. Let's go in this direction. Let's try this,
So you say 2016 is when you really started to buy in to the method yourself, right?
2016 is where I felt confident enough to just stop doing anything that I was previously taught. So like 2014 is I started implementing it right away. So I was like, I read like, I forgot what exactly the thing was, the first thing that I read, but it had to do with variation and why when you add variation to practice, even though practice looks more sloppy, you get more out of it. So I started to try to find ways to get people to do more live work, but a bunch of different things. But I didn't know how to organize it. I didn't know what to show, what to teach, what to talk about. I didn't know. So I wasn't very confident. So I experimented for 2 years, basically trying to replicate movement patterns. And so what I was doing as I was trying to teach people movement patterns and put them into live training, I kept asking myself, what can I take away and still get an exchange to happen that looks something like jiu-jitsu moves? And so by 2016, I was pretty distilled down to what I'm using now, but I just didn't have the courage to implement it into a program because I didn't know how to program design yet. I was so new to teaching. And then when John Danaher said everything is trial and error anyway, we don't know until we put it into play, that gave me confidence that a man as intelligent, as well-read, and as well-informed as him was seeing the same thing that I was seeing. He just had the confidence to develop a program around it, and I didn't. So,
okay, so then you're all in now. but there is, at least from what I can search, there is a 6-year span before you start spreading the news.
Yeah.
That is, 2022 seems to be the first podcast that I see you in, and then it's like flooded from there. But they
Yeah.
seem to start in around that timeline.
So
What took you time to decide that it was time to tell people?
I had no interest in telling anybody. That's the truth. Like I was like locked in my own world. I was in my own little lab. I mean, I was trying to build great competitors. You know what I mean? And everybody who came and competed under me had a good level of success. So much so that people didn't know who I was. But and this is again, I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you a story. People would come running out of the crowd when I was coaching. Like, who are you? Like, what's your gym? Your students are amazing. Like, I would get this all the time, but I don't give a fuck. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it, and I would keep going. And it wasn't until Jay Regbutolo, the guy who does the commentary for ADCC or a bunch, Big J with the big beard. Yeah. So Big J didn't know who I was either, and he messaged Standard Jiu-Jitsu one day, and he sent me this long message. It was one of the best messages I've ever received from anybody. And he said, I remember he said, I don't know who runs this gym, but your students are fantastic. He's like, I commentate all over the world. I watch all different guys. And the one thing I noticed about anyone from this school is they are never underprepared. They can fight from all different situations. They don't ever look outclassed, even when they lose. They always look like they know what they're going and know what they're doing. And that gave me lots of pride because I didn't know anybody really was paying attention. I mean, I heard it here and there. So I was like, oh, maybe people care about what I do. And then a guy named Scott Sabright visited my school to check out what I was doing because he was also using CLA in his striking and MMA program. And he's the one that convinced me to go public and start talking about what I was doing. After he experienced my program, he's like, brother, you're really far ahead. Like this is amazing. You need to share this with people. And I was like, nobody cares. I don't know. He's like, man, just do it. Anyway, long story short, he's the reason. And messages like that were the reason that I started talking about what I was doing.
Let's be honest. Jiu-Jitsu people are absolutely gross. We're rolling through sweat, blood, and whatever weird neck fungus that Jimmy brought back from vacation in Mexico. And if your gym doesn't have showers, you're basically marinating in all of that on your way home. That's why I use Full Guard from Sports Hygiene. It's a skin spray that kills staph, ringworm, and all the other gym gremlins on contact. No alcohol, no burn, and it's good for your skin biome. Full Guard is powered by hypochlorous acid. Kind of sounds like something from a comic book, but it's literally the molecule that your body makes to fight infection. Full Guard just found a way to weaponize it to go to war with these gross skin infections. So you can spray before class, spray after class. You can even spray your training partner during class if he smells a bit sus. Go to sportshygiene.com to grab a bottle. Jiu-Jitsu is dirty. Stay clean.
So on the thought of collaborative approach, since you've been talking about it, has it gotten better? Have people been able to, since there's more people trying it and experimenting in a way, have you been able to learn more, or is it still just what you're doing?
Unfortunately, I didn't realize how much again, I'm going to get fried for this, but whatever. I didn't realize how far ahead I was in using it and understanding it. I didn't. I had no idea because I was alone and I wasn't talking to anybody.
Yeah.
And so when I went out there and started sharing it, I realized we had a problem. Our community doesn't understand grappling. And that was the big problem. It's not because they're dumb. It's not because they didn't try, but it's because what we had available to us to understand grappling wasn't robust enough. The grappling collective mind about jiu-jitsu was all centered around techniques. And so rather than understanding why these techniques exist and how they emerge from the game, all they understood were the process-oriented replicas or the models of the techniques themselves. So when we started talking about more complex relationships and orientations and why movement patterns exist, nobody could discuss it at that level. So I was like, fuck. And I didn't even expect that. I didn't even know. And so I was like, damn. And good thing for John Danaher, like John Danaher did an amazing analysis of how positions and movements and gripping and body position and how all these things came together in a systematic way. And he showed that. Like his DVDs are basically textbooks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think they're great as a point of analysis. But again, for me, that's where they stop. We need to find a way to take the level of analysis and put it back into the complex system or the complex world. But yeah, no. So what I realized, and another thing too about the community is a lot of communities jumping on board because this is new, this is novel, this is exciting. So rather than doing their own work like I had to go through 8 years of hard work and development and understanding and reading before I felt confident enough to talk about it. These dudes, 6 months in, they're like, got it, DVD, plug and play, here it is. And you're like, yo, you're ruining it, brother. You don't know what you're talking about. Your games are trash, your understanding is trash. You don't know what you're doing, but it's so new and so exciting. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Yeah. They just want a piece of the novelty. And so nobody's doing the work they need to understand it, to change it. And I say nobody loosely. I don't know. There could be some really great guy in the background working his ass off like I did that nobody knows about.
And then the problem is that's hard for that guy to rise to the top because saying anything different is offensive in the space.
Exactly. And I try to collect these guys. Like when I hear somebody talking, when I feel like, oh shit, this dude's he's on the mark, I'll reach out and I'll say, hey man, you're doing a great job. Let's have a conversation. Let me help you out here. Let me get you to where I am. So anytime I meet a guy or I hear a guy that's really working, I connect right away because I didn't have anyone doing that for me. And I feel like if I can get some of the harder workers to truly focus on the work and not the product, we're going to push this forward faster.
That makes perfect sense because it's a skill, right? Like being able to do what you're doing is a skill, and like that's when we're talking about maybe it's a structured class, maybe it's not. It could be adjusted. That isn't something that my dad runs personal training gyms, and when you're trying to teach people how to run how to be a personal trainer, you really have to just teach them some techniques. There's really they can't know how to be a good personal trainer. After you start to give them big concepts, you give them time of getting a lot of reps of being a personal trainer, they can make these little adjustments to, oh, this person's knee is hurt. Oh, this person didn't sleep well last night. And they're able to still connect with the person, but it still is a skill that has to be learned. And if you're not willing to put in all that time of being a personal trainer, you just don't develop the skill. No amount of just like, oh, I bought the DVD will teach you, And so it seems similar that this is in the same way that we're talking about the big grand concept being the thing that gives us these little techniques. CLA seems to be a part of a bigger thing. Is that correct?
It is. So, and also too, CLA, it was developed by, Ian Renshaw and Keith David and colleagues, and they have basically a framework to let you know whether you are using their method according to their standards, which is something called representative design. And understanding representative design is not that easy. It's very difficult. And so first, understanding what it is and being exposed to what it is, seeing examples of how it's utilized in other sports, that's a great starting point for you to start trying to uncover the truth for yourself. But without engaging through trial and error, trying to see what relationships we're actually trying to manipulate in a grappling environment, we're never going to understand how to use it appropriately. It's like, imagine studying, think about this. There is no white belt that could watch John Danaher DVDs, and he's and I'm using him as an example because he's very good at lecturing about jiu-jitsu. He's amazing at it. So watch his stuff, gain all this knowledge for 6 months, and then turn around and sell a practical DVD on how to use his information. Everybody would laugh him off a cliff. But we have guys right now, like there was a guy that trained with me for a year. He's the worst coaching student I've ever had. Part of the reason why he's no longer at my gym and for other reasons. He's putting out a product. He was a blue belt when he left with a minimal understanding, and he's already selling a product. That should be laughed off. You know what I mean? Because we wouldn't accept it in any other field. Do you understand what I mean?
Everything until you say we wouldn't accept it in any other field, because it seems as though that's the standard of things in other fields, is that you monetize it in any way that you can immediately, and that is but I 100% what you agree or am getting what you are saying. Cause like on the point of John Danaher, I always will tell people like, you can watch every one of his instructionals, and he talks for a very long time in those. And so you think, I now know what John Danaher knows. No, that is one way. John Danaher could have made a 100-hour instructional talking about the same ideas because he knows them so deeply. And but understanding something deeply is what allows you to be able to talk about it.
Exactly right.
Not I heard somebody talk about it, you know?
And that's the thing, people aren't paying attention. Like, you hear someone who's as clear as he is, and it makes you feel like you know it too. But do you know what John Danaher's doing? Not copying anybody else. And so that's the thing that people don't realize is his expertise and understanding, because he's in a room every single day watching grapplers, understanding grappling, that allows him to speak with that height and that clarity. It's not because he bought the right course or because he read the right book. His life is literally coming out in the symbol of his words. And so people don't realize that he earned that. It wasn't something that he bought or was given to him. And I think that we make this mistake because our life is a bunch of 90-second clips and highlight reels. So, and monetization and gathering people's attention is now the major constraint when delivering information. And so we're paying credence to the wrong thing. Rather than paying credence to discovery and understanding, we're paying credence to, can I convince people of what I'm saying without a clear understanding of what I'm actually saying? Because it brings in money, it brings in attention. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to understand, or are you trying to get eyes and dollars?
Why not just get eyes and dollars, Greg?
So, I was thinking about that quite a bit. And a lot of guys have messaged me privately being like, hey, bro, you need to really tap into this. And the truth is I do, man. I've been working hard as fuck. I mean, just to be direct, I've taught the entire community about this thing, how to look at it, what it is. I gave everyone all my resources, all my books. I pointed everyone in the different directions. I went to seminars. I did thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of free work. Like, you name it, brother. I was out there working, man, trying to change the community. And it'd be nice to really be able to pick the fruit of my labor. It'd be great. You know what I mean? But I also want to do it with integrity and purpose. I want to make sure that whatever I offer the community, whatever dollar that's exchanged between my information and their purchasing of it, is one of reciprocal value. I really want to stay true to what I'm teaching. And again, I love to get paid, man. Don't get me wrong, but I also want to stay true to what I'm saying. So I'm trying to find that line now. I'm trying to walk that line. I mean, yeah, I could sell here are 300 games that you can plug and play into your training tomorrow for $2.99. 6 months later, 30% off on BJJ Fanatics. I could do that shit too.
Everybody would buy it.
Say what?
I said everybody would buy it.
Yeah, but I have to sleep at night, so yeah.
Okay, so what is it? I understand, but I don't actually know how to say it. What is it why would that keep you from sleeping at night? Because 300 games, there's no way that if you put that together, it wouldn't benefit people. Like, they wouldn't get better at grappling from that.
No, because see here, this is what people don't understand. Humans respond to novelty. So it's not the magic method or the pill, man. It's novelty. It's understanding the relationship between, like I said, information, variability, novelty, all these concepts, understanding how to use them. So yes, of course, if I put together, if you've never done any live work and you've only drilled, and I give you a DVD of 300 games or some digital content of 300 games, and you start playing live work, you are going to get better. But you're not going to get better because Greg Souders gave it to you. You're going to get better because you've never done it before. Do you know they've done studies on people's performance in like taking tests, and when they turned the lights off and had people do tests and tested them later, they did better. But then after a while, if they turned the lights back on and had to do tests, they got better. So it says nothing about the nature of how humans interact with light. It's that when something is new, it's introduced into a person's environment, they tend to change. And so I know that to be true because that's what the experimental evidence shows us. So I know that when I put out some digital content, it's going to stick. But I also know that you're going to have to change it because at some point, it's no longer going to be enough stimuli to create growth and learning. So how the hell do you package an ever-changing target? So, and that's the question. That's what we're trying to understand. So I have sold a few pieces of digital content, but I'm very clear and honest about the nature of what I'm selling.
Do you feel like you approach it with the same, when you're selling a digital piece of digital content, do you feel like you're approaching it with the same ferocity you are when you're convincing people of your approach for free on a YouTube video or in a podcast?
No, man, because like really, honestly, it sounds crazy, but it's a labor of love. You know what I mean? Like I love what I do. I love having discussions. I love sharing information and learning new things. So like that drives me more than the monetary value. Like, you know, my sense of autonomy, my sense of meaning, my sense of purpose is my major mover. You know, you give me $5 million tomorrow, but if I lost my autonomy, my purpose and my meaning, I wouldn't give a fuck. I'd quit. So I'm trying to find, I always try to find that balance. You know what I mean? Like I said, I do, I'm trying to, I want to do this the way I want to do it. You know, I don't want to do it the way it can be done, you know, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I wake up tomorrow and I realize, Greg, you're a fucking moron. Go make your money, bro. You know, who knows?
Most jiu-jitsu gear feels like it was designed by someone who's never trained. And it smells like it was designed by someone who's never showered. That's why I use Datsuara. My gi, my backpack, my fanny pack, they are all made from hemp. It's ridiculously comfortable, it lasts forever, and it doesn't hold on to the stink of regret from last night's no-gi class. Even better, the gi is weirdly hard to grip. It's kind of like you're grappling while covered in butter. Don't ask me how I know what it feels like to grapple in butter. Instead, go to dsgear.com and use promo code ISUCK for 10% off. And you'll stop wearing gear that feels like a sweaty, stinky duffel bag and start wearing the coolest gear in jiu-jitsu. Check them out at dsgear.com.
It's hard to write a book about work that you feel is unfinished, right?
Sure.
Like it's hard to, do you feel like there will be a point that the work is finished and it's time to write the book?
No, man. Actually, you know, to be honest, what I would really like, and this would be the thing that I would like my work to lean towards. I would like my work to lean towards opportunity. Yeah, putting out a few different courses on how to, you know, UCLA for guard passing and submissions. I'm going to do that because I know it's helpful, and I know based on the work I've done, what task constraints we initially have to manipulate to get engagement to happen. I know that because I did that work. You know what I mean? I'm not copying anybody. Everyone else is copying me. I know what that is, and I'm going to sell that. But at the same time, I want to use that as an opportunity to uplift my coaching space. So getting offers to coach serious athletes, getting offers to coach at a higher level. That's really what I'd like. I'd like to become more of a professional in my space. Getting opportunities to get high level guys coming to me so I can work with them and help improve their jiu-jitsu. That's what I really like. And again, selling some digital content, it would be nice for an extra few dollars, but that's not my passion. That's not what I really want.
What would be that ideal situation then? Like you said, that's what you really like, that coaching. What would be like the ideal? You have a group of athletes that are specifically jiu-jitsu, professional jiu-jitsu athletes, and that is your focus. And
if I attend DeAndre's, like if I could get 10 DeAndre's in my room, my life would be over. I'd be done. That's good. That's what I want to do. You know, I really thought, I was like, hey man, if I show people that I'm capable of doing this thing and my students can reach high level, that people would come here. And it's been great. We've had lots of visitors. I've had people join the gym and sign up, and that's been amazing. But I would like to have more of that. It's really cool to see like how B Team comes together, how a bunch of people go there for their training camps. It's really cool to see how New Wave comes together. A bunch of people go there, or now Kingsway. You know, they go there and do a bunch of training. And I really want to be one of those destination schools. And I work with some athletes now too. I work a little bit with Margot Cicerelli now. I work a little bit with PJ Barch now. I work a little bit with Jason Rao. When he needs me, he hits me up and asks me some questions about coaching. So there are some high level guys that I'm engaging with and I'm very proud to engage with. And I'd like to do more of that.
do you think that the right BJJ Fanatics instructional would fund that and allow people that are high level professionals, the 10 DeAndres that you have, to be able to live and eat and, not have to perform on, not have to survive on what they make from performing in jiu-jitsu
Yes,
events?
I do. 100%. But again, it's just, I have this silly ideal in my mind that if I can't please that ideal, just accept things how they are. No, man, I'd like to, yeah, definitely. You're right. It would help quite a bit.
What if you did something on your own monthly?
What do you mean?
Like something monthly. Like if you did, I mean, people love to tune into you talking on random people's podcasts. There'll be people listening that have never heard of me in their life, and they're going to be like, oh, I just like wherever Greg talks, I just like to hear them. What if you gave people a once a week ability, an hour and a half to hear, or Henry Akins does these fireside chat, and it's him hanging out in a Zoom meeting and people ask him questions. Sometimes he'll have a video of him rolling and then they'll be like, oh, what did you do here? And he'll be talking about it, just whatever, but it's literally just, it's the interaction, and it's the fact, like my dad always goes to those fireside chats with Henry Akins, and it's the interaction with him that he always is like, oh, I'm going to ask Henry about that tonight, and there's this connection, but two, he has based his whole jiu-jitsu game off of that, being in his 60s training. And it's like, he's had this opportunity because of this. And it's not, like you said, it's this monetary exchange that there's no contract he could back out of any time he wants, but he actually enjoys paying for it. It's like, the only time that he's not willing to babysit my son is when he's going to these fireside chats. And it's like, it's there is something to that. Why wouldn't you, or would you ever consider doing something
No,
like?
I am. So I don't know if you've seen my work yet. So I have a standing CLA course. I have a entanglement and breaking mechanics one, and then I have a guard passing one. And so what I've done is I've taken historically some of the task manipulations that I've used to teach my students guard passing, heel hooking, and standing grappling, and I've just kind of put them together in a comprehensive way that you can start engaging. And then I talk as my two guys are playing the game. I design the game, I introduce the game, I have them play, and I talk behind it to tell people what I'm seeing, why I designed it this way, what I might want to change. So I already do that. Like I sell that. And what's really cool is I have about 500 people that support everything I do. Like if I put it out, they're the first ones that are on it. And I really appreciate them. I mean, I really have a strong little group that likes to see my guys, likes to see my work, likes to see me succeed. And I greatly appreciate them. And that's the work. That's who I really put the work out for, And so, yeah, I do. I need to do more of it. And even hearing you talk now, that sounds fun. That sounds interesting. That sounds something like I'd like to do.
You ever read it's actually a book now, but it was an article. It was no blog post. It's called 1,000 True Fans.
No.
It's this blog post. I don't even remember who wrote it, but it's super. You can Google 1,000 True Fans, and it is about this person finding Lady Gaga's 1,000 top fans and then selling them. I want to say it was like $1,000 pair of Lady Gaga boots. They were just the type that she wore, and those 1,000 people bought. And it's talking about how he was able to make $1 million with just that. He was able to with just 1,000 people. And it's just super interesting. Very random thought. Let's go back to other jiu-jitsu conversation.
Sure, man. Yeah. Whatever you go.
So I really wanted it would be criminal to get you on the podcast this close to CJI and not ask you about it, hear your thoughts on certain things.
Let's go.
Who do you think is the team to beat for CJI? Who is the probably the biggest powerhouse in your opinion?
New Wave.
New Wave.
Yep. They have the best guys.
Would you say the same thing had they have not added Mika?
That's interesting. That's a great question. I don't know. Mika made that team so strong for me. Yeah. I think New Wave and BT in my mind, those are the two teams to beat. I think as far as like who's in the room training, who they have now competing, the cohesiveness of both those groups, I think make them very strong contenders for the people to win the games. All the competitors in the team have all competed at a very high level against each other, against other people in the field. So I think, yeah, they're incredibly strong, and they're all in the right age range too. They're all 25 to 35. They're strong right now, and so that those two. But yeah, Micah is huge.
Yeah. Is the age range thing why you don't say Atos?
Yes, and honestly, I mean, I'm not an Atos hater. I just don't really like their style. I don't think they have a very good finishing style. I think they're very good at gaming. They're very physical. They have incredible, attributes. But again, they're just not top tier finishers, or at least they haven't been in the past. I mean, there's always room for change. There's always room for improvement as a team. But Pato makes a huge improvement on their squad as a finisher. But no, I just, they're great. They're great athletes, but not great finishers historically.
Mm-hmm. And that's to your point, they're great at gaming the system.
Yeah. So, doing something like maybe getting one finish, getting a bunch of draws, and then putting a strong finisher at the end would be their strategy.
Mm-hmm.
They could win matches that way. Definitely.
When you look at your strategy that you're willing to reveal, how much of your strategy, how much of your thought, let's even say just what's already been done, in picking the team, what was kind of your thought?
So just to be transparent here, there's a lot of things I did not have control of that were very difficult to deal with when trying to put together the team. Things that were outside of my control that had nothing to do with my choices. So that's making things a little hard for me. So I'm just going to work with what we have. We have a lighter team because we decided to add Gavin to the roster rather than get another heavy guy. And so basically what that does is it pushes everyone to the weight classes to the right. So we're the lightest team. But because we are, we don't have to, because it's a true absolute, no one has to cut or no one has to prepare for their weight. So we're trying to use that to our advantage. What we're going to try to do is use team, who goes in what order as the main way to focus on winning our matches. But just to be fair, to be transparent, I believe in everyone, especially my two boys, Gavin and Dee. I believe in them wherever they are. We are the lightest and probably the most dark horse team on the whole roster.
What do you prioritize skill wise? Is it finishing? Is that the skill that matters in this? Is that you submit guys, or is not getting submitted a more valuable skill?
Well, it's not more valuable because we don't know how it's going to play out. More, or adding value to winning or not losing, is going to be relative to what's in front of us. So keeping things even by not losing keeps you in and keeps you having a winning chance. Finishing puts you ahead, but again, when do you want to jump ahead? So putting in a finisher and maybe getting ahead of maybe the next guy, that's a strategic choice. Again, especially when we're dealing with absolutes here, there's so many different weights, and it could affect the way the skills are coming out. So, yeah, no, it depends. Yeah, but we want people who survive, and we want people who can finish.
So you'll both, like, once you have a team, you'll both be revealing your order at the same time? Is that?
Yeah, no. So how it works is the only order we have is going to be your first athlete out, and I already know who the first athlete out is going to be. So once that first athlete goes out, we're going to choose the rest of our roster based on how that outcome plays out. And of course, who we get to, we don't know who we're going to bump into first. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's all going to be live. I know who I'm putting out first, no matter who we face first. And then after that, I'll have to judge accordingly.
Has the training in the gym changed for you guys for the rule set?
Only a little bit. So there are certain tactical engagements that are highlighting quite a bit with the situations that we're choosing to play, and of course how we manage time. So the way we're using time is relative to the event. But no, it's just focusing on the skills that we think that our athletes are going to be able to use to win their matches.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and unfortunately, right now, Downey is not going to be training with us for the lead up, so I don't get to influence him at all. We're getting Dorsey twice a week, so I have a little bit of influence on how he's going. Taylor Pearman actually just showed up last night, so Taylor is already in training. He'll be here for the remainder of the camp, and then of course Dee and Gav are here every day. So the only two athletes that I really have strong control over are Dee and Gav, of course.
Mm-hmm. So how did it come about to be the coach? What was the...
I woke up one morning and Craig Jones is in my inbox and he's like, "Do you want to coach America's team?" And I said, "Yes." That's literally it. Yeah, I was going to B team that weekend, which is interesting enough that I got the call. And then because I hit up Damien and I was like, "Hey bro, you're so close to understanding CLA. I think you're right on the fence. Let me come down, teach a few classes for you. Let me jump on that podcast. And I guarantee by the time I leave there, you're going to switch your program." And so that's what happened. And
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah, went down there. It was super fun. We did some filming with them. They're cool as shit. Those guys are awesome. And yeah, I talked with the guys who run the whole show, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. And then they introduced me as the America's coach.
That's really cool. How did that feel? Like you've been working really hard to be
Um, I mean,
right.
it's cool. I'm really happy to be part of the conversation now, part of the community. I'm psyched that they thought of me to do this, silly little fucking thing. It's cool, man. I'm totally with it, man. I love interacting with my community. I love interacting with the elite guys. I love interacting with the people that are trying to push this thing to the highest level. So being asked to be part of it was beautiful, man. Truly enjoyable for me. And it was really nice that I get to bring D and Gab along. Like those two athletes work so hard. And it's really nice to be able to highlight them and give them a platform competitively to move forward and build their life in jiu-jitsu. So all around, I'm really happy.
That's really cool. That is a really cool. I'm sure that's a really cool feeling as the coach to get to see that through, because there's this level of students are, especially professional students are betting on you being a good coach, and that's a cool bet to get to see pay off for somebody else.
Yeah, and what I'm betting on them too. So this is it's a relationship of reciprocity. It's not one-sided. And in my mind, I think the coach serves the student, not the other way around. So when I made DeAndre that promise 5 years ago, I was willing to sacrifice anything I had to get him to where he was going. And to be able to get him to a point in his life now where he can really fulfill his plan for how he saw his life going is deeply satisfying for me. There's nothing worse than leading a charge and telling somebody you're going to take them somewhere and failing. That is a horrible feeling. And I'm glad we succeeded so far. So
Yeah, that's really cool, man.
You never let a white belt run class unsupervised, right? So then why are you, a business white belt, still handling your gym's billing, attendance, signups, and website all by yourself? Kicksite is like having a full-time staff that doesn't eat, doesn't snack, doesn't call in sick. And I've used them for years because the software is built specifically for jiu-jitsu coaches who would rather be chasing the back and not chasing down missed payments. So if you're interested, go to kicksite.com/Josh McKinney and try it for free for 30 days. This is the best software for running and managing your gym that exists. Be sure to check them out at kicksite.com.
So just to backtrack to an earlier part of our conversation, we were talking about just a reference to being obsessed with chess, being obsessed with jiu-jitsu, or just whatever you're into. It really seems to me, I've gotten to interview a lot of cool jiu-jitsu people. It seems to me that is one habit that seems to really be attracted to jiu-jitsu. That's like a personality trait. Is it jiu-jitsu's depth that causes that? What is it that causes people that seem to be pretty obsessive to just fall in love with jiu-jitsu?
So it's actually not jiu-jitsu, it's sports, period. So Anders Ericsson studied elite performers for like 40 years before he passed away. And he said that the all elite performers only have one thing in common. It doesn't matter whether they play chess, they do music, they do swimming, doesn't matter. There's only one commonality he's ever found with any elite performer, and it's that they are bad at everything else. Elite performers tend to fall in the category of obsessive because being elite is unhealthy. It is not, it's like, reaching the top of the mountain is the dream you never wake up from. You know what I mean? A lot of writers have written about this throughout history, like what is actually sacrificed on the path to greatness. And it is everything, truly. And, it sounds grandiose, but it's real. I mean, you study elite, you've heard this story all the time. Like, dude's really great at basketball, but he's a terrible father, or he's a horrible gambler, or, he's a messy as hell, or, because I mean, if all of our focus goes into one area, what do we do? All those other things, we're not putting energy into what happens. So yeah, I think being obsessive is the nature of somebody who tries to pursue something as deeply as possible.
Yeah, that seems accurate. As somebody who is obsessive, self-proclaimed, what do you feel like is, obviously there are going to be pitfalls to it, how do you feel like you've learned to deal with it?
By closing my eyes and acting like it doesn't exist. Like,
Okay.
the truth is like, we all joke and laugh and, without getting super weird about it, it's a fucking problem, bro. Like,
Yeah.
because it's not just something that exists in one area. It spreads out with who you are, and there are consequences. Like,
Yeah.
I have an internal monologue that's constantly running. And because of that, it's hard for me to focus on things that I don't want to focus on. Like, even sleeping is super difficult. So there's a lot of negative consequences for having whatever that is. But it also it helps me achieve the things I want to achieve, Like when I'm trying to understand the relationship between angle and elbow position, and I don't have someone to give me the answer, it has to run in the background for however long it does. And sometimes it'll run in the background so long that somebody will be in the middle of talking to me and I'll just jump up and be like, I got it. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, the elbow needs to be. And they're like, dude, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. Just,
Yeah. Sorry.
it is
My
what
bad.
it is. It is what it is.
That it is, and it's this problem that it seems like so many black belts suffer from, and or and it's part of probably why they're black belts. But it is, like you said, there are consequences to, if you have that trait, whatever that trait is. And Point Break, it says you have the kamikaze in you, and
Yeah,
that's,
man.
you have the kamikaze in you, and you can't pick something up without obsessing over it.
Sure.
You can't, and sometimes, and this is the bad way to say it, sometimes it's very hard to enjoy anything because of the obsessiveness, because it could be better, especially in the jiu-jitsu space or just out, but it could be better. It could be more, could have been earlier, could have been, could have done more, whatever. But that same internal dialogue that's always like almost problem solving constantly, seems to get some relief through jujitsu or maybe through just whatever sport, but it's still there, and it is still just dangerous. Are there things that for you that you have to sacrifice and go, no? I mean, obviously there are, but besides chess, are there things that you go, I just can't even look at that. I can't even engage with that.
I mean, it's crazy. A lot of people say all kinds of things about themselves that, are just like kind of crazy, but really, for me, it's everything. So I'm not really interested in other things. Like, I read a lot about my subject matter. I mean, if I did have any interest, I mean, I have interest in classical writing. I have interest in the beat poets of the 1950s. Like, I have interest in artists all around. Like, I watch a lot of documentaries about different artists, different writers, different musicians. But everything is really pointed back at this thing that jiu-jitsu serves for me. And I just, no matter what it is, that's sat at the center of my life for so long. I don't really like other things, It's like after my coffee cup empties, the only thing I look forward to is training my guys at the end of the day, and then it all starts over again. So you get into this this Groundhog Day type loop where you just keep saying like, man, my coffee tomorrow is going to be delicious, and man, my guys the lesson's going to be so sick, and that's the only two things you really think about. So I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like I avoid doing other things. Like I avoid being social, I avoid going out, I avoid doing these things because I'm not there anyway. So if you invite me to your cookout and I show up, 2 minutes later, I'm going to be staring at my feet, thinking about anything else but being here. So, yeah, I don't know. So no, I don't. There's nothing I do but fully embrace it, right? If this is the
Yeah.
thing that I'm going to be, then just be the thing. Don't try to change yourself, man. Just go. You got to waste our time doing one thing or another. Stop telling yourself coulda, woulda, shoulda. Just do the fucking thing and move forward.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. So it's like while you're watching these classical movies, or while you're, whatever you're doing, you're seeing this guy dancing with this girl and you're thinking she could hip toss him right now. He let
No.
her win this elbow position. What is going on? Look at the footwork here is terrible. He's inside your feet the whole time. What are you doing? And so, yeah,
No.
is that
Here's
what you mean?
no,
Is that the
well, yes and no, but here's the thing. So the way I think about jiu-jitsu now isn't based on the specifics. It's based on the interactions. So like one thing, I just recently watched the Led Zeppelin documentary that's on Netflix, right? It's fantastic, by the way. And watching how these guys came together. So I was thinking about the nature of how these people find each other. So you have a guy who's obsessed with playing the guitar. You have a guy who's obsessed with playing the drums. You have a guy who's obsessed with the strange sound his voice is making, and they don't fit in anywhere but with each other. So it's like they're all actually traveling in the same direction. So these local rules that each of them are following and pursuing turn into this global interaction where they end up traveling to the same point in time and they bump into each other. And then we get this explosive force that was Led Zeppelin that literally changed rock and roll history forever. And so I think about that at the nature of standard jiu-jitsu or any other gym. Like think about how cool, like a Pedigo, I think it's how you say it, Pedigo. A bunch of these guys from these rural country towns that had this passion for grappling. They met at this old busted up laundromat and they were just going hard, man, trying to be this thing they wanted to become, supporting each other, bringing their culture to it. And now they're one of the strongest teams out there doing it. So I don't know, a lot of time when I watch this stuff, I think about the complex nature of interactions and how serendipitous these things that we're so amazed by appear in our lives. And so I think the same thing about like techniques, for example, right? Like the first person to discover this thing, it wasn't because they were intentionally doing it. It was largely an accident. And then once they discovered the thing, they surrounded it and understood more about it through interaction. So I don't know. These are the things I think about.
That's really cool. That makes sense. I live an hour and 15 minutes away from Heath and Pedigo, their whole team. And so coming up, I got to see them come up before there was ever a documentary, before I was going over and training with Andrew, and it was 100% real. There was not one bit of exaggeration. That was exactly who they were when they were in the documentary, and it was so real.
People like that are not fake. That's why we like them. Mm-hmm. They have to be real. Their lives are lived on a knife's edge. Like you get what you get because that's how they interact with each other. And I think that's why that team attracts me so much and why I like them so much. Because I feel a similar spirit, you know what I mean? And I like to watch their success and I like to see them get out there as a group and how they talk to each other, how they yell at each other and how they bring their culture as honest and real to this sport. I love it. Like I'm totally a fan. Totally a fan.
That's really cool. So I just have a few other questions for you, a little bit off the topics that we've been on. But is there any kind of training, whether strength and conditioning or something else totally different, is there any type of training that you recommend your athletes doing outside of jiu-jitsu?
So absolutely. I think that all athletes have some kind of strength conditioning program. The body responds to novelty and variation. So the more that we can add to it, the more robust and adaptable the system becomes. So there's nothing magical about bench pressing. There's nothing magical about squatting. But if we challenge the system in different ways, we can get the system to change. And that's what we want. And it also gives us a little break from jiu-jitsu. It's taking a step away and maybe focusing on some other physical aspects. Like if you really enjoy doing physical things and you just need a break from jiu-jitsu for maybe one day a week, one session a week or 2 sessions, 3 sessions, whatever, man, add some other thing physical, man. You know what I mean? Do something else. And so strength conditioning, I think, is a nice difference that also contributes to an increase in capacity that we can then turn into skill. If everyone's willing in my gym, like, hey, man, let's get on a strength conditioning program and try to, kill some of our weaknesses, enhance some of our strengths.
Do you anything else besides like strength training, strength and conditioning?
Nothing that I really recommend, honestly. It's like, I try to exist only here in the gym. So what my athletes do outside of here is really up to them, as long as hopefully it's healthy. But there's not much I recommend other than that. Yeah. Like any recommendation I give somebody is going to probably solely be centered around jiu-jitsu and grappling.
Mm-hmm. So for you personally, who's the best guy you've ever rolled with? You've ever felt do
Holy
jiu-jitsu?
shit, that's a great question. I don't want to say the best, but a lot of people have different qualities that were just so overwhelming that I was like, oh, this guy's amazing. So, the first few guys that come to my mind was, Murillo Santana. Murillo Santana's guard passing is phenomenal. Like when he takes a line from you, like feet, knees, you don't get it back. And this is especially true in the training room. Like a lot of people see him in performance and they see his up and downs and they don't realize how good he actually is at the art of grappling. He's phenomenal. I really enjoyed the time I
saw me at a tournament once.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he did.
he's crazy, man.
He
And
got a good amount of views too. It was rough.
yeah. Hey, man, we were all out there sometime or another, bro. Yeah, Eddie Cummings, his guard in general, his grip fighting from the seated position, and the connectedness of both his entanglement and his break was phenomenal. That level of precision and everything I just haven't felt. I've trained a lot of good leg lockers, but like he stands out to me quite a bit. I trained about 10 hours with him. I would go up to Unity when he was there and we would just grapple for an hour and then I'd take the train back home. And that was crazy. That was huge for me. I mean, I've trained with the Menez brothers a bit when they first came here in 2008. They were at Lloyd's for a bit. Bruno Frazado. Yeah, I've trained with some good guys, man.
What is one thing that stands out, some of the guys that you named, that has changed the way that you look at jiu-jitsu?
So everyone tries to talk about like, you don't want to use strength, you want to be efficient, blah, blah, blah. Nobody knows what that shit means. They just say it because it sounds good. Every one of those guys feels like death. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. They're clean, they're precise, but it also is like they're strong, they're fast, they're precise. It hurts a little bit. Like that doesn't go away. The only time that you can be chill is if you agree to it or you are so much better than the other guy that no matter what they do, they can't do anything. So that's what they taught me, is that it's okay to bring competitiveness and strength and force and all this stuff into your jiu-jitsu as long as it's pointed, as long as it's directed at a thing, at an outcome. It's what's necessary. Strength and technique, if we can parse those two things out, are just two sides of the same coin. They're not actually parsable or separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I totally understand, totally agree. Because if you had none of the strength that you have, your technique wouldn't work, right? So there is definitely something between the two. I completely agree.
Have you ever finished a roll and thought, what was I even doing out there? Same. We have all felt that way. And that is why you need Jiu-Jitsu for Imbeciles, a free course from Rob Bernacki that explains Jiu-Jitsu so clearly, it makes you wonder how you ever got confused in the first place. I am telling you, it is like a TED Talk for people who suck at Jiu-Jitsu. And that is why they're giving it totally free to I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners. So go to bjjmentalmodels.com/ISuck and download it for free right now before you throw away another roll chasing guillotines from bottom side control.
So, sorry, my handwriting's terrible.
You're good, man. So is mine.
So is there, you kind of talked about it, the view of jiu-jitsu and how when you went to apply your approach that the view of jiu-jitsu was not there. And so it was like you had to basically create your own view of jiu-jitsu and then apply an approach to. And then when you went to say, hey, everybody, check out this approach, you're like, oh, wait, there's no view. There's no understanding. Like you're saying, it's like it's a list of techniques on the wall, and that's how we're teaching each other. And that's how we're thinking about jiu-jitsu is like, well, what one technique is he going for in this situation? Well, when the grip is on your lapel here, you always go for this knee cut, right? And that's kind of how we were wanting to look at jiu-jitsu. If this is even a quantifiable question, when you look at your jiu-jitsu, your view of jiu-jitsu, one, what is the main point? Like in grappling, what is your main goal? What is the main objective? And then two, is there something that is this kind of big, I'm trying to think of the right word, maybe like a big misconception that a lot of people still seem to have when it comes to jiu-jitsu that your view maybe differs from?
Okay, those are two really big questions. So try to keep me on track so I can answer them because that's a wonderful question too. So the first thing is my view is literally the framework that I created. And I've talked about it a million times, it's on a million podcasts, but that's literally what changed my idea about what's actually happening. So the first thing I realized is this step-by-step process-oriented thing was just not happening. People talked about it, they showed this leads to that. But when you watch actual grappling, it doesn't exist. So it's like this thing that everyone's talking about, but when you look at it, it's like, it's not there, man. Yo, guys, the emperor has no fucking clothes on, he's naked. His style's not cool, there's nothing there. So like, that was the first thing. So then I was like, okay, well then how do we look at it? Well, then I realized that it's just humans doing human things to other humans, pushing, pulling, twisting, bending, straightening. That's all that's happening. So how can we describe it in a way that takes those human movements, that pushing, pulling, twisting, bending, and we apply it to something that we would understand as being a tactic, a strategy, or a mechanic in the grappling environment? And that's when I came up with immobilization as it leads to strangulation and breaking. So everything we do mechanically, tactically, or strategically is to increase the level of immobility in a system relative to how we're trying to strangle or break them, or the resistance of those things. And so no matter what we're doing, no matter where we are, no matter what level of engagement is happening, that's always the intention, because there's a relationship between things that don't move and things that break. That relationship is true of breakable physical objects. So that was the big picture lens that I looked at jiu-jitsu through. And then I would basically change the perspective and compress the way I was looking at it to try to understand how these things were happening. So then we attack the periphery. That's the things that stick out from your body, the head, arms, and legs, to get to center mass. That's the hips, chest, shoulders, and back. So if I can't get to your center, it's very hard for me to hold you still enough to break you. It doesn't matter what we get to the center with, whether we get to the center with the connections of our arms, whether we get to the center with the connections of our legs, it doesn't matter. I just need to be able to access that center. So then I can do the rest of it, which is to isolate and immobilize the periphery.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all that's happening. So we can take any snapshot, and that's what we're seeing going on. And then finally, the skills. To do that, we have to make and maintain connection. So I can't control, immobilize, move an object unless I can connect to it, unless I can maintain those connections within the time scale that's required to produce the effects. And then the effects are isolation, immobilization, segmentation, destabilization. And so that's just the framework that I now look at grappling from. So I can describe every mechanic, every tactic, and every strategy through that framework.
In the framework, is breaking connection part of it?
Correct, because so we play a zero-sum game, which means which is good for me is bad for you, and what's good for you is bad for me. So that's assumed in the word immobilization. So if we're both acting upon each other, and I'm trying to increase immobility in your system, you're trying to increase mobility. So that's the fight that we're battling over.
And so I wouldn't sacrifice immobilizing you, immobilizing myself.
Only to the degree at which it gave you an advantage in future immobilization. So we can think of closed guard as the perfect example. Closed guard immobilizes yourself to give you quick access to your partner's hips. Mm-hmm. So an example would be if you watch DeAndre at the most recent IEGA, his third place match, he fought the Russian guy, and he went to closed guard right away, but people never see DeAndre go to closed guard. But what we've done is we understand that if somebody is negation heavy or backs off a lot, we have to get to those hips. And sometimes getting through the hips, through the periphery, the head, arms, and legs is very difficult for someone who flees, someone who runs away. But we can close the guard right away to keep the hips close to us while we go ahead and attack the periphery. So that's what you saw DeAndre do. He knew that he had to immobilize himself to keep his partner close by getting to the hips, i.e. closed guard. And then he used the attachment to his partner's hips, the closed guard, to access his legs. So we did it a little bit backwards. Again, that's an example of that at play.
Makes sense. So, okay, the second part of the question is, what is the misconception that people have? Go ahead.
The word system, it drives me insane. Now, I'm not saying this to pick on Gordon. Gordon Ryan is an amazing grappler who's done more in this sport than anyone else before. I'm going to say with that caveat. But when they use the word system, they're not using it correctly. He'll be like, oh, this is the guillotine system. Well, it's not complete. It's not if they do this, then they do this, then they do this. That would go on forever. And if it was that simple, then you would never, ever, ever miss a technique because you could anticipate and prepare for every eventuality. The system is not that. The system is where you train, where you came from, who the people you train with, the time you're training, the sweat on your skin, the strength of your body, the level of your fatigue, your view of the world, the culture. That's the system. So understanding how techniques that we see fall into the entirety of a person is a system. And so the reason I think that's important is if we're teaching someone jujitsu, we're not just manipulating the tactics that they express, but we're manipulating them and the world that they live in. So if we look at the system as being a larger thing than just the techniques, I think we gain a deeper understanding for why behavior is what it is.
And man, that makes sense. And so are there systems in jiu-jitsu?
Everything is a system. We live in a system, right? So it's just, so what we want to understand is what's called
So
boundary.
when we're trying to say as coaches, because I've never had a good way to verbalize it, but I always feel like the word system is something I stay away from because I'm like, I don't think that this is right. I don't think what you're saying is an e-cut system. It doesn't seem to be that way. And because you're not doing, like you said, you're not doing it on everybody. And so if it is, your system's broken. It doesn't work, bro, and you're selling it. And so are there, I guess, teachable systems? Is that how you look at what you're teaching, is trying to teach the systems of this idea of immobilization and through what was it? Immobilization through, say it again really quickly, through
strangulation and breaking.
And breaking. All right.
So
Gotta break.
let me get that. But actually, just because people hate that I use words like strangulation, periphery. The reason I actually chose those words is because they fit the description for what we're actually talking about. So strangulation happens in a myriad of ways, but it's the act of cutting off blood to the brain. That's really what we're after. Whether we get choking or whether we get compression, whether we get pain, those are all secondary aspects. The primary aspect is unconsciousness. So that's what we want because that's an automatic win. So if you go unconscious, you die, you lose, right? That's what we want. So strangulation is by which we do that. You know what I mean? So I feel like it describes more of what we're after than just choking, for example, and then breaking is what we do to the limb. We straighten it or we twist it, which causes a break, whether it's the bone or the ligament or the tendon, who cares? As long as that shit snaps off, we're good to go. You know what I mean? We're breaking it. And so, and that's both true for arms and legs. That's why I chose breaking, because that's their limbs. We break them. And then periphery, I use periphery rather than limbs because periphery is stuff that sticks out. So even if you're close enough and you're only engaging with the shoulder, that's a little bit of periphery. I need to move that out of the way if it's acting as a frame or a defensive structure. So I chose periphery because it describes everything that sticks out from the center.
How long has this been your terminology?
I create that framework is what I had in my notebook in 2015, 16. So that was the thing that I was trying to understand how to implement because I really wasn't sure like if those words sounded stupid or if it was complete. I didn't really know. And I didn't really have the confidence to go with it, really. I was like, well, this is just my interest. This is just going to be my jiu-jitsu. That's what I told myself,
But it kind of like, I guess this is going back. I think this has been a part of a lot of the conversation is that there are these times, and I think coaches that have competed or have had high-level competitors, but there are these times that you notice that same obsessiveness you had to do as a student, you do it for years and years and years and years and years, and then you have these, like you said, big epiphany, this big moment that something happens and it gives you this perspective. And you hear a lot of people, like, again, as a podcaster, I hear a lot of people share their specific perspective based on the language that they use and again, where they grew up, who they were around, if they were influenced by wrestling, if they were influenced by, and what they were influenced by. But my question is more on just language for jiu-jitsu in general. Do you think it would be beneficial for jiu-jitsu to have a standard language, to have something that, was textbooky, or do you think it's better that standard jiu-jitsu can speak the standard jiu-jitsu language and, each gym is able to speak their own language?
I'm actually split on this topic. So, for example, when I learn about English, why the words are the way they are, how we orient our language historically, I'm fascinated by the rules we've chosen to follow. But at the same time, it's post hoc analysis. These rules emerged from English-speaking people. So the organization of grammar is happening under the hood, and we only describe it later. It's happening so much so that the most grammatically correct language is actually slang. People that are not trained appropriately to speak use rules of grammar without knowing they're using them. An example would be like using the word go and went, right? So somebody who might not understand or might have a classical education would say, I goed there yesterday. But goed there yesterday is grammatically correct, it's perfectly correct. And it's implicit, it's sudden. Went sounds better because it's another word that describes past tense, but it's not necessarily grammar. It's just a word we use to describe the past tense of go. So though that sounds better if we're writing a classical piece or we're writing a thing, goat is literally, children can understand that. So I don't know. I like the natural emergence of grammar, but I also like the boundary conditions we set as principles, concepts, and rules to help guide how we're using these naturally emergent phenomena. So again, I go in both directions, man. I have a rigid mind in the sense that I love to classify and I love to analyze, but at the same time, I'm a man in the fire. I love it. I love things to be chaotic and wild. So I don't know, man. I'm split.
Do you think if you were restarting and before you have so the 2013 2012 jiu-jitsu space was a lot different than it is today. The amount really to learn true things about jiu-jitsu, meaning that like what we're talking about now, someone who took study from outside of jiu-jitsu and is trying to bring it into jiu-jitsu, that really wasn't very common. That there wasn't a lot of access to those type of ideas. So how much different do you think it would look for you if you were in this space today as an early, as a purple belt before you were there? Do you think that the approach for you now that there's so much more would have been, okay, I want to learn the Danaher language, or I want to learn the standard language, or I want to learn one of these languages. So then I can at least learn to speak with these people. I can learn to learn from these people.
Yeah, I actually really like the way Danaher speaks and the way he lectures. He drew me in right away. So my natural inclination is to listen to him, because he appeals to the way I see the world internally. So the way I think about the world, the way that I like to sometimes draw right angles, it appeals to me. But sometimes it doesn't, because I see where it fails. And so I appreciate his academic approach, his trained approach, but to me it's not enough, because I also like the beauty of messiness, the beauty of chaos, because I think failure and mess and disorganization is actually what a system needs to be truly novel, variable, and ultimately stabilized into something usable. So without it, we get something that's too stable and ends up dying. So I don't really like it. Change is the thing we're embracing. And if we put too many bounds on the things we're trying to engage with, we don't allow for that random, weird, chaotic change, we don't get what we want. So language, I think, is similar. Sorry, all that babbling to say. Yeah, I don't know. He appeals to me, but I don't know if I would push anybody in that direction. Here's how I think about it. You have to communicate jiu-jitsu to both people that are in the space and people that are not in the space. When you're dealing with a beginner, does inside Senkaku help us get to where we're going, or does keep your feet in between their knees get them to where they're going? So the language we use has to be effective for a wide range of practitioner. And if our language doesn't...
I think inside Senkaku might be better.
Excuse me?
I said if I was Japanese, I think that inside Senkaku might work better for me. But
sure,
as an English-speaking American, I'll take the leg position more than anything.
For sure, and I feel the same way. I mean, again, who you have to know your audience, man. The words you choose are going to appeal to the audience that you're speaking to. So I think it's better to be able to adapt to who's in front of you than to force a framework down somebody's throat, which sounds contradictory coming from me because I do use jargon, I do use scientific language when I share this, but I only do that out of respect to the people that I learned it from. I'm not doing it because I think it must be done, but I think giving them respect for their hard work and the definitions they've given us and the terms they've agreed to, I think that's our job if we're going to share their work.
That makes sense. So I just have one last question for you. So I always finish on the podcast, or at least for the last couple hundred episodes, I finish on the podcast with the same one, and I'm very curious to hear your answer.
but what is the best piece of jujitsu advice that you've ever gotten? Or if not, what first pops into your head when you hear that?
You know, it's funny. Recently, we did like a hot take on jiu-jitsu with the guys, and DeAndre said, if you don't like it, quit. Just strangely enough, I think he and I are aligned on a lot of things, even though we as personalities, we're very different. The thing that he and I align on very strongly is that we both love grappling and we both understand what it means to dedicate and commit yourself to a process. But a lot of people think that you need to do it when you're unhappy. You need to do it this way or that way. So yeah, if you don't fucking like what you're doing, if you're not having fun, if you don't enjoy it, if you don't desire to show up and you need to keep notes and you need accountability, buddy, quit. You don't actually like it. Don't waste your time. Find something else you enjoy and give your whole heart to it. You know, I think too many people try to jam themselves into a space they don't really like because they feel like they have to. But it's your life, pal. It's your time, guys. Jiu-jitsu, if you look at it, is dumb as fuck. It's stupid. We spend all our time locked in the room squeezing and twisting and hurting ourselves and hurting each other. So if you don't like that, it's not for you. So I love it. I'll do it till I die.
I hear you. Me too. I'll be there too.
Good, man. We need the purists. And actually, I like your shirt, man. I'm looking at it the whole time. Somebody asked me the other day, like, if you had to talk, what's one cultural piece that you add to all your training? And the answer I gave him was imposition. The one thing that I believe in to progress effectively is to impose your will on your opponents. So that's funny you wore that.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. My guy who sponsors me will be thrilled.
Yeah, man. Tell me he chose right.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. Anything you want to add to finish?
No, man, I actually want to thank you. You know, I see, because a lot of people watch your stuff, it pops up all the time on my feed. And I've always been curious about, if you and I were to speak, what would you ask me? What would be your perspective on what I'm doing and what this whole thing is? And I actually appreciate you not only reaching out to me, but trying to change the nature of the conversation by giving me the freedom and space to speak about things that are different than what I've traditionally spoken about. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to show other aspects of who I am and what I believe in. So thanks, man.
Yeah, of course. I really really enjoyed having you on. Honestly, I always do have an intention with each podcast, and really the intention was to answer the question like, hey, is Greg Souders a nice guy? And so
Probably not.
yeah, well, and in my opinion, you are, but my opinion's valueless in the jiu-jitsu space. So I don't know. But man, I really appreciate you coming on and just being so giving to the jiu-jitsu community in general.
Sure, man. Yeah, of course, man. It's my pleasure. Like I said, it's always good to be part of your tribe, man. You want to know you have utility. You know, a man in his tribe without utility, what are you? You know what I mean? So